You believe that you know your home. You look at maps and see continents, borders, safety. But this is an illusion. We are a fragile species, huddling on the thin, dried-out skin of a planet that does not belong to us. Most people fear the vacuum of space, absolute emptiness. But the ocean is the terrifying antithesis of emptiness. The ocean is merciless, uncompromising weight. It is the pressure of thousands of atmospheres, an invisible force actively striving to break your biology down into molecules. Every 10 meters of descent adds another atmosphere of pressure. Down there, in the Hadal zone, in the deepest, most hostile trenches on Earth, the pressure reaches 1,000 atmospheres. That is equivalent to placing 8 tons on every square inch of your body. In this realm, the familiar rules of biochemistry collapse. Under such extreme external pressure, the very network of liquid water molecules becomes distorted, changes its shape, and forcibly penetrates proteins. Vital biochemical processes should stop instantly, which would inevitably mean death for any ordinary organism. Flesh should turn to stone, and yet these 37 completely black trench fractures scattered across the planet are not barren deserts. Something moves in this darkness. Something that perceives this crushing weight not as an executioner, but as a cradle. We cross the final boundary where the last photons die. Light is dead. Are you ready to see how nature distorts its own fundamental laws in order to breathe life into an environment that should have become a mass grave? For the life forms that thrive here do not merely endure the silence of the Hadal zone. They are built from it. And the anatomy of their survival is a true nightmare that we are only beginning to dissect. Light does not merely fade, it suffocates. Descending to a depth of between 200 and 1,000 meters, we cross a dead belt, a zone where the level of dissolved oxygen in the water falls catastrophically. It is a suffocating barrier that separates the upper, sunlit world from the infernal depths. The water here is dense, lifeless. It drains away vitality. But even here, there is an economy of its own, built on remnants. This snowfall has nothing to do with ice. It is marine snow, a continuous, slow rain of dead flesh, excrement, decomposed phytoplankton, and bacterial slime, falling ceaselessly from the surface. Every fragment of this snow is a microscopic corpse that sinks into the abyss for months. It is the only source of energy for those who have never seen the sun. A true feast of death, where deep-sea microbes break down this organic matter, turning it into building material for the ecosystem of darkness. There is no photosynthesis, only the endless consumption of what died above. We pass the 3-kilometer mark. The pressure rises relentlessly, but here another invisible and far stranger barrier begins to take effect. The lysocline and the carbonate compensation depth, CCD. At the ocean's surface, calcium is an unshakable building material for bones and shells. But here, under incredible pressure and in freezing cold, the water itself becomes an aggressive, acidic liquid. Beyond 3.5 kilometers, solubility increases so sharply that any shell made of calcium carbonate begins to dissolve alive. According to Le Chatelier's principle of chemical equilibrium, ultra-high pressure, low temperatures, and a high concentration of carbon dioxide force calcite to break down into calcium and bicarbonate ions. The water eats the armour. Organisms that descend below this boundary must either completely alter their biochemistry or their skeletons will disintegrate into atoms before they even touch the bottom. The ocean takes its minerals back, leaving no trace of the weak. In this acidic, crushing darkness, evolution deforms bodies. Eyes here either degenerate completely as useless or transform into gigantic lenses capable of capturing a single photon of light. Bioluminescence here is not decoration. It is a weapon and a lure. In impenetrable darkness, light is a lie that conceals sharp teeth. A glow in the darkness promises salvation, but brings death. We are approaching critical depths. The pressure becomes so catastrophic that the molecular network of liquid water itself begins to distort, compressing beneath the weight of thousands of atmospheres. The water attempts to forcibly destroy the hydrogen bonds within the cells themselves, penetrating proteins which should instantly halt all biochemical processes. This is the zone where normal biology breaks down. But just when you think that only a crushed, sterile wasteland lies below, it turns out that the shortage of food, the absence of light, and the deadly pressure have not merely failed to destroy life, they have stretched it to nightmarish proportions. Something is waiting for us below, and its size violates every law of logic. Welcome to the Abyssal Zone, a place ruled by cold, eternal darkness and total, absolute hunger. Ordinary logic suggests that a scarcity of resources and crushing pressure should produce small, underdeveloped creatures here. But hell has its own perverse mathematics. This phenomenon is known as abyssal gigantism. Instead of becoming smaller, the inhabitants of the abyss become hypertrophied. Low temperatures radically slow metabolism, artificially extend lifespan, and delay sexual maturity. This leads to an abnormal increase in the size of the cells themselves, and consequently, of the entire body. Nature deliberately creates giants, guided by Kleiber's law. The greater an animal's body mass, the more efficient its basal metabolism becomes. In a world where food is a mirage, a large body becomes the perfect mechanism for conserving energy during endless journeys across the desert of the seabed. What you see before you is Bathynomus giganteus, the giant isopod, a blind scavenger that has grown to 76 centimeters in length. And it is here because it has detected the scent of the greatest jackpot of its life. The death of a whale at the surface is a tragedy. Down here, it is the foundation of an entire civilization. A phenomenon known as a whale fall. When the 30-ton carcass of a leviathan breaks through the dead zone and crashes onto the seabed, it brings with it more organic matter than the feeble marine snow could provide in 1,000 years. Monsters converge upon it from across the ocean. Giant isopods bite into the dead blubber and devour it with such uncontrollable greed that their bodies swell almost to bursting point. They eat so much that they physically lose the ability to move, becoming prisoners of their own feast. But for them, this is the only survival strategy. This single meal will allow their distended stomachs to digest the rotting flesh for years. An isopod can lie in impenetrable darkness without a single scrap of food for up to 5 years, feeding on the memory of this whale. But even giants have their limits. We descend even deeper. 10,000 meters. The Mariana Trench. The Hadal Zone. Here, the pressure is so great that, as we already know, water becomes an aggressive solvent. The shells of crustaceans, composed of calcium carbonate, would simply melt in the acidic environment here, leaving the flesh unprotected. Below 5 kilometers, ordinary crustaceans should not exist. But evolution is a merciless experimenter. This is Hirandelia gigas, a small amphipod that survives at the darkest point on the planet, because it has learnt to clothe itself in metallic armour. It swallows sediment from the seabed and, with the help of special sugar-based chemicals in its gut, extracts aluminium ions. In this toxic environment, it generates a gel of aluminium hydroxide across the surface of its body, an impenetrable chemical shield. This creature literally sweats metal, forging itself an exoskeleton that the enraged water cannot dissolve. They have donned aluminium armour to stop the ocean that wants to break them down into atoms. Nature has created armoured knights and enormous vultures. But as we approach the absolute final bottom, we encounter a barrier that cannot be bypassed with a metal shell or a thick layer of fat. Here begins a zone where the pressure is so colossal that it physically crushes and breaks the very protein molecules from which flesh and blood are made. An ordinary fish here would literally disintegrate into cellular slime. And yet, they are here. To survive where biology seems impossible, these ghostly fish have had to fill every cell in their bodies with a substance that, under normal conditions, is considered poisonous. Are you ready to look inside their anatomy? We are entering the Hadal zone. This is the ocean's subterranean realm of the dead, named after the ancient Greek god of the underworld. Here, at depths greater than 6,000 meters, the pressure reaches levels at which water itself becomes a weapon of mass destruction. Here is one of the few vertebrates that has dared to descend into this realm: the Mariana snailfish, Pseudoliparus swirae. Its body is a masterpiece of extreme engineering, built upon breakdowns in the genome. To prevent its cell membranes from turning into rigid, lifeless plastic beneath the weight of the water column, this fish massively duplicated the ACAR1 gene in its DNA, which is responsible for synthesizing special fatty acids that keep the cells fluid. To prevent the brain from being crushed inside the skull, evolution made a macabre decision. It simply left the skull open and unfused, allowing the pressure inside and outside to remain equal. The BGLAP gene in its DNA mutated, permanently halting normal calcification. Its bones are nothing more than soft, deformed cartilage. It is completely transparent because, in impenetrable darkness, the skin pigmentation gene, MC1R, was permanently erased from its genetic code. This fish is a biological ghost. But even for these ghosts, there is an absolute, insurmountable boundary: 8,400 meters. Below this point, you will not find a single fish anywhere in the world. Not one. This is not a matter of insufficient food or oxygen. It is the brutal mathematical limit of biochemistry itself. Under colossal pressure, the network of water molecules becomes distorted. Water acts like a microscopic wedge, forcing its way inside the organism's protein molecules and tearing them apart. To survive, deep-sea fish fill their cells with a chemical chaperone: trimethylamine N-oxide, TMAO. TMAO acts as a structural anchor, preventing proteins from collapsing under the crushing pressure. The deeper a fish descends, the more TMAO it requires to survive. However, at a depth of approximately 8,200 to 8,400 meters, the concentration of this substance reaches a critical threshold. The internal fluid of the fish's cells becomes iso-osmotic with the surrounding ocean water, exceeding 1,000 milliosmoles. To descend even a few dozen meters deeper, the fish would have to overturn millions of years of its own evolution, transforming its cells into hyperosmotic systems and forcing its kidneys to operate in reverse, as they do in freshwater creatures. For fish, this is physiologically impossible. Therefore, at a depth of 8,400 meters, vertebrates encounter an invisible biochemical wall. Those that cross it will literally dissolve at the cellular level. This is not sound design intended to heighten fear. It is a genuine acoustic anomaly recorded by autonomous hydrophones here, above the Mariana Trench. It was named the Western Pacific Biotwang. The sound begins with an ultra-low moan at a frequency of 38 Hz, but then abruptly erupts into a piercing metallic screech at 8,000 Hz. This signal has such a synthetic, almost extraterrestrial quality that scientists were unable to identify it for a long time. Although the sound was eventually linked to the vocalizations of Brooder's whales swimming far above, it is difficult to escape a sense of existential horror when listening to this mechanical cry echoing through the absolute darkness of an 11-kilometer deep trench. The ocean sounds like a machine that does not need us. Here, at the very bottom, where no vertebrates exist, entirely different rulers reign. The sediment of the abyss is overflowing with viruses unknown to science. Their numbers here are abnormally high. They do not merely exist in this sterile cold. They brutally control the ecosystem. They infect bacteria and archaea en masse and tear them apart. This process, viral shunting, is an invisible, bloody, microscopic meat grinder that releases carbon and provides nourishment for the few microbes still capable of surviving in this darkness. The death of some becomes the only source of life for others in a place that the sun's energy never reaches. We stand on the threshold of the deepest point on our planet. Almost 11,000 meters of pressure, cold and viral sediment. But when we direct our searchlights towards this ancient, least accessible place on Earth, we will see something that will terrify us far more than any deep-sea anomaly. Are you ready to discover what artifact is waiting for us at the absolute final point of the world? We are at the bottom, almost 11 kilometers beneath the surface in the Challenger Deep. This is the planet's final waste chute. Did you expect to see an ancient monster here? A leviathan sleeping in the darkness? Reality is far more terrifying in its banality. Here, among the ancient sediment, where the ecosystem is brutally governed by bacteria and geometrically perfect viruses, lies an artifact that will outlive us all. An ordinary plastic bag. Along with it, all the consequences of our age slowly but inevitably descend here. This zone is the final reservoir for our civilization's black carbon. Heavy metals settle here, while lethal doses of mercury and arsenic continuously bioaccumulate in the bodies of bizarre deep-sea creatures. We arrogantly believe that we have conquered nature by scattering our traces across the entire planet. But to the ocean, our toxins and our plastic are merely another portion of endless marine snow. Dead matter falling from above. Remember the giant isopods that can lie motionless in the darkness for years, feeding on the rotting flesh of leviathans? Remember the ghostly, transparent Mariana snailfish with their unfused skulls, whose bones have refused to harden because of the pressure? To them, our plastic is not a tragedy. For millions of years, they have already lived in a hell where water, under the pressure of 1,000 atmospheres, can deform molecular structures and tear proteins apart, and where survival depends on tiny crustaceans being able to forge impenetrable aluminium armour for themselves from sediment. This world functions perfectly without us. The ocean does not hate us. It does not seek revenge. It is absolutely, infinitely indifferent. If the Earth's atmosphere were to burn away tomorrow and the continents were reduced to ash, the abyss would not even notice. The silence of Hades would remain undisturbed. Here, in eternal darkness, life would continue digesting itself, obeying the brutal biochemistry of pressure. The only question is, one day, when nothing living remains above, might this darkness decide to rise? The ocean knows how to keep its secrets, but we will continue descending to places where most people are afraid even to look. If this journey into the abyss has made you feel the true scale of our vulnerability, leave your mark. Like this video. In the digital ocean, it is the only sonar signal that helps our project break through the cold and indifferent algorithms. Subscribe to the channel. New anomalies, brutal biochemical paradoxes, and scientific truths that shatter the illusion of safety lie ahead. Press the bell so that the system does not leave you in complete informational isolation, just like at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And before this communication session is cut off, write in the comments, what frightens you most? The monstrous biology of the depths, the crushing weight of 1,000 atmospheres, or the realization that we are merely guests here? Until the next dive.